Here's a quote by Julie Broad: "Books change lives." If you're thinking about self-publishing a non-fiction book that you're writing or have written, then this video is absolutely 100% for you. In today's book summary and review, I'm going to highlight 7 key takeaways and worthy mentions from Self-Publish and Succeed, written by Julie the Book Broad. Let's dive in with takeaway number 1, the book deal that you don't need. Julie Broad was initially rejected by traditional publishers Wiley, and on her journey to self-publishing her books, she discovered that self-publishing is actually quite mainstream and cites some famous books and famous authors who started off with self-publishing. The other thing to note is that marketing of the book is typically mostly done by you, not the traditional publishing house. There's also the issue of controlling your intellectual property, which is very important. And finally, you keep the majority of your royalties because there's no middleman. Takeaway number 2 is the hook. And you have to think about this in terms of your ideal reader or audience. The first question to ask is, what's in it for the reader? And you do not want to have a lengthy pitch for this. You want to think in terms of an elevator pitch, very short, very punchy, and to the point. Now, just a quick note on who your audience is not. Your audience is definitely not everyone, and it's certainly not a demographic. Takeaway number 3, you, absolutely 100%, you and your book could change someone's life. And only you can write that book. It's your uniqueness that makes your book unique. And sometimes you have to deal with negativity. Sometimes it's other people's fear that's projected onto you. Maybe you've got some self-doubts or imposter syndrome. You need to remember what your goals were for this book. And it may also help to have a book coach to coach you through the entire process. Takeaway number 4, identifying scams. Here's 5 tips for you. And the first one is rights. Are the rights yours or someone else's? Number 2, guaranteed bestseller or book award. You have to ask how they're guaranteeing that. Number 3, royalties. How is that profit pie being split? Number 4, ISBN. Who is providing this? Is this something you're bringing to the table, or is someone else providing this for you? And number 5, author copies of your books. How are you paying for these? And are you being charged more to buy author copies for yourself or for your own marketing purposes? Takeaway number 5, presentation is so important because customers do judge books by their covers and everything they can see. So everything from the front cover, the back cover, the book description, and the interior design, they've all got to look great. And this book includes some great tips on how to achieve that. Takeaway number 6, how to generate more income from your self-published book. Number 1 was courses. Number 2 was consulting opportunities. And number 3 was paid speaking gigs. There are way more tips inside the Self-Publish and Succeed book that Julie goes into more detail on. Takeaway number 7, repurpose your self-published book and use it for brand building. I picked up the top 3 because there are so many ideas in this book. The first one is videos that you can produce on certain topics in the book. Number 2 is presentations you can create for certain topics in your book. And number 3 is create workbook or worksheets that you could potentially use for a wider audience in courses and so on. Takeaway number 8, worthy mentions. As you probably know by now, there are many pieces to the self-publishing puzzle. Number 1 is you have to get your book written, and you must keep marketing in mind because, believe it or not, the book will not sell itself. You have to market your book. So once you've written your book, you need to have your book edited, understanding the process, budget, and timing of that. Presentation, although briefly mentioned before, the first 20 pages are critical because that's what a lot of customers can see. And finally, production and distribution of your book. How are you going to get it into the hands of your readers? Just a brief recap before we move on to the book summary. We discussed the fact that you don't actually need a traditional book deal. You can self-publish. The importance of a hook throughout your book, in fact, and your uniqueness, it makes you the right person to write your book. Top 5 tips on identifying scams, And customers do judge books by their covers as well as anything they see. So that's front cover, back cover, descriptions, and so on. There are ways to generate more income through your self-published book. It's also possible to repurpose and use that information as a brand building tool. So you can repurpose your self-published book and use that to further your brand. And finally, we discuss some worthy mentions. Let's finish off with a review of this book, and we'll start off with who it's not for. So this book, I would suggest, is not for anyone who's anti-self-publishing or looking for a traditional publishing deal sort of route. This book probably isn't for you. Now, what I really liked about this book was that it keeps marketing in mind, because truth be told, your book doesn't sell itself. You do need to market your book. Okay. And number two, the fact that the presentation is so important, and customers do judge based on what they see, everything from the cover, description, and first 20 pages, and so on. It's critical. And finally, if you're in any doubt whatsoever as to whether you're the right person to write this book, you are absolutely the right person, and your uniqueness is what your book needs. Okay, there are millions of books out there, and your story can only be told by you. And I found this book by Julie Broad really helpful in reinforcing the mindset aspects of that. And before I go, don't forget, like the like button, and I shall see you in the next video. Have a great day, everyone.